This is the Financial Beat, helping you hit all the right notes in your financial plan. So sit back as we strike up the band. The Financial Beat with Logan Sadler starts now.
Here we go, ladies and gentlemen, another edition of the Financial Beat with Logan Sadler at Regari Financial. My name is Ron Stutz. Always a pleasure to hang out with Logan on this radio show. Logan, how you doing, my friend?
I'll tell you what, Ron, I'm doing great and looking forward to a great show here.
Well, we have a lot of interesting things to talk about, but first of all, let me put your phone number out there, as I always do, 888-823-PLAN, 888-823-PLAN. That is your number to call if you'd like to get a conversation going with Logan Sadler. We call it a discovery meeting. Won't cost you anything, won't obligate you to do anything at all. We'll tell you more about that a little bit later on. But first, I want to ask Logan, how did you enjoy your Father's Day last week?
Yeah, it was great. Hopefully many of you out there listen to the show, the fathers out there, hopefully you guys had a great one as well. And we just hung out around the house, Ron, had a nice little barbecue, had some family over, kept it very low key and was very, very relaxing. The weather was about as perfect as you could ask for, and we just really kind of just hung out and got to spend some time. My father came over as well too, and so it was a good time. How was yours?
It was fantastic, just pretty much like yours. A lot of family time. Man, I enjoyed spending time with my kids, and they made it really great. So
it's always fun, isn't it?
Yeah, it really is. I love it. So hey, let's get into the heart of the show here today, and let's start with a little history lesson. And 26 years ago, June 24th, 1997, U.S. Air Force officials released a 231-page report dismissing all claims of an alien spacecraft crash in Roswell, New Mexico. That was in 1947. So, they were studying this thing 50 years later. And then, and they came out with this report. So
and we're still chasing that stuff, right?
Exactly, man. I don't know if there's life on other planets, but one thing I do think is that it's hard to believe that ours would be the only planet where there was something going on like that,
That's kind of how I feel. I mean, you think about obviously out here in California, I think about Florida's a long ways away, right? It's hard to believe there's life way over there, right? But there is, right? They got amusement parks and beaches and everything, right? So I find it hard to believe that, like you said, another planet, there's not something going on. Are they green and look like aliens? I have no idea. Do they look like us? Got no idea, right? But I think there's definitely a chance of something going on. But I always find it interesting because every few years someone releases something or footage or, now with like drones and these security cameras and stuff like that, you're getting more and more little snippets here of some activity or what looks like to be activity. So I think it keeps it interesting.
Yeah, I think so too. And sometimes I wonder about some of the things that are happening in Florida anyway. Having nothing to do with aliens.
That's true. That is true. I mean, it's like I said. You think about Europe or some of these places that seem so far away.
Yeah,
it's just hard to believe there's people over there doing pretty much what we're doing over here. So I don't see why that couldn't be the case for planets. But who knows?
Well, hey, let me ask you about a television show that I have been enjoying a lot myself lately, binge watching it, in fact, Ted Lasso. You ever watched Ted Lasso?
Mm-hmm. No, you know what? I've heard so much about it, and that's definitely on my list here, so I'm excited to kind of learn as we go here.
Well, let me just say that from my point of view, it is a great series. I mean, it's really, really good, so I think you'll enjoy it. Check it out when you get an opportunity.
I'm going to add it to my list.
And today, I think we can learn a little bit about retirement planning with Ted Lasso, and since I've watched it and you haven't, I'll help you through this a little bit here. But
perfect.
Let's see what we might be able to learn about retirement planning from some quotes from Ted Lasso. He once said, "You beating yourself up is like Woody Allen playing the clarinet. I don't want to hear it." So
that's pretty good.
Even without watching this show, you can tell that's kind of a crazy comment. But can you make any sense out of that from a financial standpoint?
Yeah, I think, with financials and in life, right? I think a lot of us are very good at making decisions or going through something and then maybe regretting it immediately or down the road, right? And I've seen it time and time again, like I was saying, with either family decisions or financial decisions where we really can't move on, right? We're constantly beating ourselves over the past or some other mistakes we've made.
Yep.
And, it's neither in my opinion, it's not productive and it's not enjoyable and it doesn't really fix anything, right? My dad used to always tell me, actually, you can complain about it, but unless you do something to fix it, I mean, there's nothing else you could really do, right? If you sit there and complain, it's not going to help anything, right? And so I think that's true with a lot of things. And in financials, it's no different. If we have a lot of clients where they've came on board and in the past they might have maybe bought a financial product or maybe made a bad financial decision. And at the time they made it, it might have sounded great, right? But maybe they got more information or their situation changed down the road. And now it's like, well, you know what? I wish I wouldn't have done that, or I wish I could undo that. But I think really it's more about looking forward and how can we make changes now to maybe fix that or set us back on a better course to get us back where we were trying to go. Because again, there's always a solution to look at and there's always ways to fix things. It might take a little bit longer or it might be a little bit of a different route, but there is some ways to really fix some of those decisions, whether it's in personal life or in finance.
Boy, you really hit the nail on the head there. That's pretty much exactly the interpretation that I was thinking about, because I can't remember in what context, Ted Lasso said that, but it was after somebody was really feeling sorry for himself and regretting something that he had done, or maybe the guy had made a mistake on the soccer field, that kind of thing. So, hey,
that's easy to do, right?
Perfect interpretation, yeah. Here's another one, and this one I think is pretty easy to interpret. And we've talked about this sometimes. If the internet has taught us anything, it's that sometimes it's easier to speak our minds anonymously. Boy, ain't that the truth?
Yeah. Yeah, it's that's funny. I can make sense of that on everything, right? I mean, it's like you were saying, Ron. I mean, you go on the internet now, you have to go onto YouTube or you go on just basically Googling something. I mean, you can find a good article about something. I always tell clients that if you want to find something bad, you're going to find something bad. Yeah. If you want to find something good, you're going to find something good. I was having a good conversation with a client yesterday, and he was saying, you know what? I was on YouTube and, the world's ending, right? I was looking at the financial system and this is crashing, this is going to go down, right? And he was really, really dark about a lot of this. And we were laughing. And I had told him, I said, there's an algorithm, right? Where if you're constantly searching, like, what happens if the dollar were to collapse, right? Yeah. Their algorithm now is throwing you different videos that are going to basically keep supporting that theory, right? And so I was telling him, and he started laughing, and he goes, you know what, you're probably right, right? So I said, go on there and look about the strength of the economy, right? And then all of a sudden you might find some good videos that might make you feel a little bit more positive about it. Right. And that's the problem, I think, with the internet. Yeah, and I think that's the problem with the internet, Ron, is anybody could write anything about something or make a video about something, and a lot of the times there's not weight behind it, or they might not have any actual bearing on what's going on. I think it's funny where a lot of people will take advice from somebody on a video or an article, and they're not even their financial advisor, right? They've never even looked into that situation or thought about how that could be good for them or not good for them. They just simply make a judgment off of an article or something. So I think it's just super important when you're making those financial decisions, or really any decisions about something you're reading about, is making sure you're understanding how it pertains to your situation and making sure the person that you're taking that advice or that information from has some credibility behind it.
Yeah, absolutely. It really is amazing, too, how, when people make all these anonymous comments, I mean, some people can be really vicious, and that is a really bad thing about the internet. People can say anything.
For sure, yeah. There's not always nice stuff on there, right?
Yeah, exactly. Here's something else that Ted Lasso said. Boy, I love meeting people's moms. It's like reading an instruction manual as to why they're nuts. He was meeting one of his players' parents, I think, at that point. So
gotcha. Okay, that is funny. What's funny is I kind of, not necessarily I would say that they're nuts or anything like that, right? But I always do like to ask clients, tell me a little bit about your background and your upbringing. And it's really interesting because you can learn a lot about somebody from their upbringing, right? And whether it's financials or beliefs or values, whatever it is, right? You can find out a lot about people, and whether that's family, friends, or whoever it is. And I think that's super important because, look at financials and savings and things like that. A lot of that is shaped when you're a kid, right? A lot of the times if your parents were big spenders or not big savers or didn't look at investments or anything like that, you might have grown up and not really looked at investments or been a great saver or done any of the things, you might have followed that same footstep. And I've seen some clients where they're very, very savvy when it comes to investments. They talk about putting money away and they talk about saving for later and all that with their kids. And, so to speak, all of a sudden the kids get to that age where they're 20, 25 years old and they're starting a retirement account, right? Or they're opening a brokerage account and they're buying a stock or they're investing. And it's very interesting how having those conversations with your kids or grandkids could be a great way to really shape some of that conversation and to really shape some of the, the values and stuff like that they'll have when they get older. And I've seen it a lot, Ron, where I was talking with a client, literally it was just a few weeks ago, and she had done very well, very savvy, had put away a lot of money and really put herself in a good situation. And I had asked her, what kind of got you started doing all this? And she had said, well, when I was a kid, my grandfather sat me down and said, hey, it's very important that when you're making money, no matter how much it is, you always want to make sure you're saving some for later. Mm-hmm. And looking at things like the stock market or things like that is typically a good place to look, right? And so her grandfather having some of those conversations with her as a young child really was just kind of instilled in her some of those values to want to go out and do what her grandfather had taught her. You know what I mean? So I think it's interesting how that does translate a lot of the time.
You're listening to The Financial Beat with Logan Sadler, and right now we're talking about some quotes from Ted Lasso. And I don't know if you watched Ted Lasso on television, but boy, it's a series I strongly recommend. It's really good. Hey, one more here, and this was in response, something Ted said in response to a reporter's question. I think they were coming off several losses in a row or something, and the reporter said something about panicking at this point, and Ted Lasso said, there's two buttons I never like to hit. That's panic and snooze. Can you make any sense out of that from a financial standpoint?
That's funny. I'm going to use that one. Yeah, I definitely can. I mean, I think a lot of you listening, when you heard panic, you probably thought about, well, I might have been guilty of panicking a time or two, right? And so a lot of that is typically when I look at like the stock market, right? A lot of clients, they say, you know what, Logan, I've heard the S&P's averaged, an 8 to 10% return. I wanted to be aggressive, right? And try to get that type of return. And then the market went down and all of a sudden I panicked, right? The world's over and I'm pushing the panic button as hard and as fast as I can, right? And that's typically one of the worst things you could do is get invested, maybe incorrectly or too aggressively and have to experience that panic button. And even for some of us out there that aren't invested aggressively, it might even be a very conservative investment, but you might be at a time in your life where you're just not wanting to take risk or not liking the feeling of risk, that you're caused to maybe make some, improper decisions when it comes to pushing the panic button. And so I always say, it's something where the panic button is, you want to make sure when you're getting your actual financial plan, not just investments, but your plan, understanding, what is your panic button? What is your portfolio? What could it do during a good market, but what could it do during a bad market? And try to get to understanding of how you're positioned, and more importantly, what the effects of that would be on your plan, right? If we had that good result or that bad result, and making sure you kind of understand that. And I think on the other side, Ron, snooze, right?
Yeah.
That is very genius. I've never actually used that in a conversation with a client, but there's a lot of times where clients kind of get an idle, right? Where they just kind of are in the same old thing and same old plan and have never really made any adjustments or really been interested in making any adjustments because they might be on snooze, right? So I think it's super important when you're getting closer to retirement, and a lot of you listen to the show might be, 30 years old, you might be 60 years old, but a lot of you guys are, typically 50 or older and are getting closer to retirement. Maybe you're 5 years out, maybe you're 10 years out, or maybe you're just getting ready to start and you're looking at your current portfolio or your current plan and maybe even saying, I don't even think I have a plan, right? I just have a 401k and an IRA and maybe a pension and some Social Security, but I'm not sure how I'm supposed to make all of this work cohesively to really make a retirement plan. And that's where you definitely want to make sure you're reaching out. Don't hit snooze. Make sure you're reaching out to somebody. And hopefully hopefully you like the show and want to give us a call and come into one of our offices and sit down, whether it's in person or via Zoom, where we could really take a deep dive into your situation and analyze where you're currently at, but more important, where you want to go, right? And really help put together that retirement plan that gives you the confidence to get you to and through retirement. And that's exactly what our firm here does. And we've helped lots of people just like yourself driving around right now or listening to this show get to and through retirement. So definitely would love to sit down and have a conversation and see if we're a good fit together.
And Logan Sadler is always completely aware of what's going on. He never snoozes. and never panics, that's for sure. And now you don't have to. Call 888-823-PLAN, 888-823-PLAN, your number to call if you'd like to have a conversation with Logan. It's free. There's no obligation at all. Logan Sadler is the Vice President and Chief Investment Officer at Regari Financial, serving you in Southern California. 2 convenient offices, one in Hemet, one in Redlands. He would love to talk to you. And again, it's not going to cost you anything and not going to have any strings attached for a discovery meeting. You can discover things about him. He can discover things about you. You can get to know each other and decide if you'd like to work together. 888-823-PLAN is your number to call to make it all happen. I'm Ron Stutz along with Logan Sadler. You're listening to The Financial Beat, and there's more coming up in just a moment.
Don't you want to see sharp and not be flat in retirement? This is The Financial Beat.
We're back now with more of The Financial Beat. Ron Stutz here along with Logan Sadler, VP, Chief Investment Officer at Regari Financial. Hey, remember that at Regari Financial, they have great partnerships with local CPAs, attorneys, real estate agents, mortgage lenders, Medicare specialists, just about everybody having anything to do with your financial life or your financial needs. And at Regari, they can help offer you well-rounded guidance in all things financial. And certainly, if you'd like to have access to all that information and an opportunity to talk to Logan Sadler on a regular basis, then call 888-823-PLAN, 888-823-PLAN. Logan is all about helping you get to and through retirement. Number one more time is 888-823-7526. Easiest way to remember it, 888-823-PLAN. Logan, I want to leave it to you here because, I learn something from you every time we talk, but I want you to share some of the dirty little secrets of the financial industry.
Perfect.
So we'll call the topic of this conversation Dirty Little Secrets. So most of the time, nobody really knows what's going on. I mean, nobody has a crystal ball. And is that true? Do you find that to be true, that most people don't really know what's going on at the time?
Yeah, it's not that they don't know what's going on, but they don't necessarily, there's not always an immediate fix, right? And it's hard to see, for example, I mean, it's very easy for an advisor or for a client to say, hey, during that last collapse we had back in 2008.
Yeah.
Right, we had a 2008-9 crash. If you would have just stayed in this position, now looking back, you'd have made 100% returns over a 5-year period or whatever the returns were, right? Mm-hmm. And that's super easy to say now looking back, right?
Sure.
And I always tell people, like, it's hard for a lot of financial advisors and like tax professionals and things like that. You end up kind of being a history teacher, right? You're talking a lot about the past, and a lot of clients are wanting to know more about what the future holds, right? Mm-hmm. And the problem is no one really has a really great idea of where the future is going to go. And I think that's where a lot of people will get, a lot of advisors try to get clients or try to sound maybe smarter than someone else in the room, where they're trying to predict a lot of these things that are going to happen, right? And the problem is it's super, super hard to predict where things are going. Now, do I think a lot of advisors, or including myself, are we out there going blindly, doing, just guessing? No, not necessarily, right? There's a lot of fundamental data and research that can tell us kind of what to expect over the next maybe 3 to 6 months or the next year or two. But there's always these black swan events like a COVID or things like that where it can throw a wrench in the plan. And that's where I think it's super important, where some advisors, Ron, have a hard time explaining what has happened in the past, right? So let alone trying to explain what could happen over the next 20 or 30 years of a retirement plan. And I think financial advisors need to do a better job of guiding more through the planning, right? A lot of people are trying to, announce great returns, or, maybe, you could put your money in this thing, it doesn't lose any money, but you might make some money, like an insurance product or something like that. And again, all of those things can be great in a plan, but a lot of people don't have a plan, right? And so I think that's where looking at, what could happen over the next 10, 15, or 20 years, going through some of those best cases, because again, we call it a stress test, where we'll look at your portfolio and say, hey, what would happen if a COVID-19 happened or something like that, where your account went down 15 or 20%, how would that affect your portfolio, and how would you emotionally react, right? Would that be something that was too catastrophic for you? Well, perfect. We might need to look at something that's more conservative or something that might be more safe. And then in other cases, it might not have affected the plan at all, right? And you might have been fine with that. So it's important to kind of understand where you're at and not get caught up in trying to guess or go after that shiny object, but really making sure you have that comprehensive plan that's looking after that full retirement approach and like what we call the 5 pillars of retirement, and making sure you're not get caught in trying to guess what the future is going to do.
Here's another dirty little secret. Most of the things we argue about aren't really all that important. That's important to remember in life and in things financial or anything else out there.
Yeah, it's so true. I mean, I was actually just talking before I came on the show here with Debbie and Brenda here at our office, and it was funny because we were laughing how, you go to like a coffee shop or you go golfing with your friends or you go out to dinner, and you're kind of like, we call it, you're sitting there solving the world's problems, right? You're gossiping about politics or religion or policies or the market or family problems, whatever it is, and you got all the answers, right? And it's funny because, it's the same thing with financials. I see it all the time where you see these big heads on the radio or big heads on TV, or even us family members at dinner or at, like I said, at a coffee shop where they're debating, what type of financial tools or strategies are better, right? And how much money you should have in cash, or when the next market, or what the next market is going to do next week, right? The problem for a lot of financial professionals is that they get way too caught up in debating the minor details, right? About, hey, should you have 20% in mutual funds or should you have 15%, right? Should you have, how much should you have in the market versus bonds, or annuities good, or how much should you have in cash, or, like going over that type of stuff. And again, it's all important to the plan, but a lot of people don't spend time talking about the actual broad scope, right? About looking at, well, what would happen if tax rates went up? How would we be able to mitigate through that? Would a Roth conversion make sense? Would us contributing more to a Roth 401k make more sense? Also looking at things like Social Security. It's one of the biggest decisions inside a financial plan, because for a lot of you out there, that's one of the only income streams you might have that is, number one, probably guaranteed, and number two, that might have inflation protection on it, right? It has a cost of living adjustment. And so many people will just pick that at 62 because their friend at the gym told them they should, and then they come into the advisor and say, hey, what mutual fund should I buy, right? And it's kind of the opposite. I think you need to look at everything more broad scoped and understand there's so many of these decisions that can affect the overall outcome of the plan that might have as big of an impact, or maybe even bigger, than if we were in mutual funds or ETFs, right? Or stocks or ETFs, or if we were using more bonds or annuities, right? So I think looking more broad scope and understanding that all of those decisions, whether they sound small or big, they might have a huge impact on the outcome of the plan, and really making a more of an impact than just deciding over what is better that week and what type of return. I've heard clients over, well, I got a 6% return and my advisor only got me a 6.5% return, right? But not understanding the value of all of those other decisions that might have had a lot bigger of an impact than a 1% return.
Yeah, and you're listening to the Financial Beat with Logan Sadler here. And if you like this conversation, if you want to have a one-on-one conversation with Logan, all you got to do is call 888-823-PLAN. You can make it happen. Don't worry, I'll give you that number again coming up in just a few minutes here. Hey, one more I wanted to mention here, and this is true these days with so many people expressing their opinions very loudly and, acting like, with such bravado and everything. They're saying things that, this is true or that's not true or whatever. The bolder the opinion, the more people pay attention to it. He who speaks loudest gets listened to a lot, right?
Yeah, great point there. I mean, like you said, there's a lot of these people on TV or news anchors or whoever it is, and a lot of these gurus on the Money Channel or whatever. And they have a super big opinion on, all of your money needs to be in stocks, right? Or you should buy this stock today, or you should do this. And it's really funny because a lot of them are maybe have some decent investment advice here and there, right? Not saying they're all wrong or not saying they're all right. But I say if you tell me every single day you have a 2-hour show and you name 50 stocks to buy, one of them is going to be right? So it's hard to get too caught up in that. And like you said, I've found it where there's a lot of companies out there on TV where they're claimed to be financial advisors, right? But they don't use any insurance products. And so they'll say, annuities are bad. You shouldn't have any of your money in the annuities. All of your money should be in the stock market 100%. Nobody ever needs an annuity. right? And then you'll see other insurance advisors out there where, hey, you should have all your money in annuities. You shouldn't be taking any risk, right? And so they're just so one-sided. And one of the things I always say is, as a financial advisor, I've seen many instances where an annuity or a portion of money for a client in an annuity might make a huge impact on maybe their income for their portfolio, the overall safety, and the peace of mind that they want with their retirement plan, right? It might be a perfect fit for some of their money. Again, not all of the money by any means. And I've seen a lot of instances where clients have annuities and it's like, well, you really didn't need one, right? You might have had a large Social Security, a large pension, you maybe have some rental income. You really didn't need any extra guaranteed income from those type of sources. You might have been better off just using some of the market alternatives rather than just use the annuity, right? But you met with an insurance person, so they put all your money in an annuity, right? So I think the louder the opinion, like you said, the more convincing it seems. But it's super important when you're meeting with a financial advisor or when you're getting ready to retire or when you're going through any life decision where you're making these decisions of where we should put money or if we're using a financial advisor, you want to make sure that you understand the plan. And I always tell clients it's very important when we're getting together, and that's part of what our process is, Ron. As you know, talk about it all the time where, the people come into our office for a discovery meeting. It's typically about an hour long where I really just dive through what it is you're trying to accomplish. What's your income look like on a good year? What's your income look like on a bad year? How much income would you need in retirement? What type of fears and concerns do you have about retirement? And, a lot of those questions and that dialogue back and forth really allows us to assess where you want to be financially. And we can look over your statements and your investment holdings, and we get back together at our second meeting where then we'll go over, hey, you know what if we were able to do this in the portfolio? Would this make a huge impact on your emotional, decisions? Would this help the overall plan? And we're really able to lead with the planning and look at things comprehensively and not just say everybody needs this investment or everybody needs that investment, because again, it's called personal finance, right? Because every one of you and every one of us are different, and we have different beliefs or different values and different goals with our financials. So it's important to make sure when you're meeting with an advisor that you making sure that you are with someone that understands what it is you're trying to accomplish, and they're putting what is actually right and what actually fits in your financial plan.
It is definitely financial planning on an individual basis, and Logan Sadler will tailor a plan for you. But first, you have to talk. He needs to find out your hopes and dreams, what your expectations are for your retirement, what kind of lifestyle you want to live. 888-823-PLAN is your number to call. 888-823-PLAN, your number to call to get in touch with Logan Sadler at Regari Financial. Now, leave your name and your phone number. You'll get a call back from Regari Financial first part of the week, and you can set a convenient time to have your conversation with Logan. It's a discovery meeting. He discovers things about you. You discover things about him, and you decide if you'd like to work together. It's just that simple, and that first conversation is certainly not going to cost you anything at all. You can get a phone conversation, or perhaps you might want to come into one of the offices in Hemet, Redlands. It's totally up to you. 888-823-PLAN is your number to call to make it happen. It's time to reach out, especially if you've been listening to this show for a while and haven't gotten around to making that phone call. Why not make today the day that you break that trend? Go ahead and call Logan's office now. 888-823-PLAN. You're listening to The Financial Beat. I'm Ron Stutz along with Logan Sadler.
Did you know music is good for the heart? A study at a university in Italy showed that music helps promote a better cardiovascular system. But we also know that a sound financial plan is good for peace of mind. Keep listening to The Financial Beat so we can help you find a plan that both your head and your heart can agree on.
Welcome back to more of The Financial Beat. Logan Sadler is the Vice President and Chief Investment Officer at Regari Financial, serving you in Southern California. I'm Ron Stutz. Always a pleasure to hang out with Logan for a while on the show every week. But Logan, I mentioned earlier that you have a variety of YouTube videos out there, and certainly folks can check out the podcasts. Tell us about those, how folks can access all that good information.
Yeah, for the podcast, you can head over to wherever it is you download podcasts. Might be Apple Music, Amazon, Spotify, and you could type in The Financial Beat with Logan Sadler. And there's, again, well over 100 episodes now that you can go check out. And again, there's a lot of good information. So if you like the show and the format of it, and hopefully we keep you entertained and give you some good value, you can check that out on the podcast platforms at your convenience. Again, The Financial Beat with Logan Sadler As well, you can head over to YouTube and again, type in The Financial Beat with Logan Sadler, and we have many different YouTube videos on there now. I think we're adding up quite a bit, so we do a new one each week, and they're about anywhere between 5 to 10 minutes long of different retirement topics or questions or strategies or tips that a lot of you guys are asking about or wanting to know more information about on the radio show. So we bring those to you there on the YouTube format with some visuals and sometimes some charts and some data to show you a little bit about what you're asking. So head over there. Again, there's lots on should you consider a Roth conversion? So should you look at retirement earlier or later? Maximizing Social Security, right? A lot of those fun and interesting videos you guys are wanting to learn more about. You can head over to YouTube, click subscribe, and again, type in The Financial Beat with Logan Sadler, and we appreciate the support.
Well, let me just brag on you for a moment here. I think you do a really good job with those YouTube videos. They're just long enough to be informative, but not too long so that you don't get bored. They're kind of, they're riveting, man. They're just
well,
riveting.
Thank you. I try to make them how I like to watch them, right? So I watch a lot of YouTube as well on different things. And so that 5 to 10 minutes is perfect, right? It's enough where you learn a lot, but not enough where I'm going to fall asleep.
Exactly. Yeah. You want to remain alert, as we said before. Don't hit the snooze button.
Yeah, very true.
Hey, let's talk about assuming things. You know what they say about when you assume something. I don't think we need to say that, but we often see people making certain assumptions about retirement that just aren't correct. And today it would be a good day to explore some of those. There are some people who make an assumption and they say, "I'll spend less when I retire." Well, that's not exactly the way it always works, is it?
No, it's not. I mean, it's funny because there's a lot of research out there that spending in the early years of retirement actually significantly outpaces inflation, right? Because statistically speaking, like you said, Ron, I mean, let's talk about the average. And again, I talk about this with clients at our discovery meeting. How do you envision your retirement? And like you said, Ron, I mean, a lot of times you see these TV commercials where they're talking about traveling to Hawaii or playing golf or hanging out with your grandkids, taking them on a family vacation, or, you look at the Carnival cruise lines, come take a vacation with your family with us, right?
Yeah. Right.
Unfortunately, I don't know if you guys gather where I was going with that, but that all costs money, right? Those activities are not free. So typically there's a chance you'll be spending money. And there's a reason why most people spend the most money on Saturday and Sunday. And that's because we're at home, right? We get bored. We want to go out to eat at the diner. We want to go out to eat at the steakhouse at night. We want to maybe go grab some lunch, or we want to go play golf. We want to travel or do something. So I think it's just super important to be very aware that there is a chance your spending might stay the same or even go up in some cases, and to make sure that if it is going to go up, making sure your plan calls for it. Because I think the problem is so many people retire just not knowing what type of income they could realistically generate, and also what type of income they realistically can live off of, right? I see that a lot, where I did a YouTube video on that not that long ago, where most people aren't really sure what they spent last month, right? And so I think it's very hard to just all of a sudden retire from that paycheck and not know what type of paycheck you have coming or how much of a paycheck you actually need to support that lifestyle.
They say that, people spend more money on Saturdays than any other day of the week, and Sundays wrapped in there too. But, you're going out, you're buying things, you're going out to eat, as you mentioned, and you're playing golf or whatever the case may be. But, when you're retired, if you're fully retired, every day is Saturday. So
it's true.
It's so easy to spend a whole lot of money, especially in those first years. Here's another assumption that people make, and it is definitely not true in all cases. My taxes will be lower when I retire. A lot of people have been told at some point in their lives that when you retire, your taxes are going to be lower than they are now, and that's not necessarily true either.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't put a lot of stock into that, right? I mean, and what I would say is some of it, and that's why I always talk about it, and that people probably are tired of hearing me say it, but it depends on your situation, right? The famous words. But no, it really does, because some of you out there might be in a lower retirement tax bracket than when you're currently in. And some of you, that just might not be the case, right? I mean, you look at right now, around 76% of the federal budget is allocated towards, entitlement programs where, I mean, they're basically, if they continue to go up at this current rate, in less than 10 years, those programs will require 92% of the federal budget, right? So when you look at the government and where we're going, it's a lot of these experts and economists and things like that. A lot of the data is just pointing towards tax rates are going to have to go up, right? And whether that's dramatically like some of these tax proposals we've seen, or whether that's a little bit, but either way, if tax rates go up, it would have an effect on your retirement plans. And the problem we see is, and again, not that it's a problem, but one of the things we do see when it comes to retirement is a lot of people have a lot of money, or most of their wealth, tied up in a 401k or an IRA or some type of tax deferred vehicle, because the thought was, hey, if I put money in while I'm working, I'm going to defer tax now, and when I take it out, I'll be in a lower tax bracket, right? It sounds great on paper, and for some people it does work that way, but for a lot of people, they're probably going to be in a higher tax bracket when they pull that money out, and the problem is they're paying taxes on all of the growth at a potentially higher rate, right? So I think it's super important when you're looking at your retirement plan to see if there's a way to create some tax flexibility in there, whether that means if you're still working, like contributing to Roth IRAs, Roth 401ks, using tax-free life insurance is a way for some of us to do that, or if Roth conversions make sense, and seeing kind of how that would figure into your plan, to where, again, some of our clients, we've been able to orchestrate some of these avenues. I mean, it could be tens of thousands of dollars of tax savings, which can have a big impact, right? And so it's just really important to find out where you lie on that and how you could potentially be affected if rates were to go the other way, which, again, a lot of people are thinking that's the way it's going to go.
There's some people assume that they're never going to be able to retire. You know, they worked hard for a long time, and they just don't think they're ever going to be in a position where they can retire. But that is not always the case either for those people.
Yeah, very, very good point. I mean, I've worked, I wish I had kept count of the amount of people that I've met with over the last, 10 years or 5 years or however long our, firm's been around a long time. So our firm's met with lots and lots of people, and we've seen it in many, many different ways where they, some people come in and they think they can retire, but unfortunately, maybe they don't have the budget or the assets to be able to support the lifestyle they want. So they might have to go back to work, right? Or keep working. And there's a lot of people that come in, Ron, and they're in a situation where once you start kind of plugging together where they're at and where they want to be in the next maybe 5 years or 3 years or whatever the time frame is, it's like, you know what, if you were okay with this type of income and you could live your life and enjoy your retirement, you probably can go out in 3 years or 5 years or next year, whatever, depending on the situation. But a lot of times they might be able to retire maybe sooner than they had thought or on time, and they might not have thought they were ever going to retire, right? So you don't really know where you're at until we call it sizing up your current situation, right? You want to look at where you're at, where you're going, and where you want to be, and see if you're in that position to where things might look better than you thought, right? And so I think it's super important, and that's part of the reason we always talk about to and through retirement. What does that mean, right? I think what that means for a lot of you out there is many of you guys have on accumulated assets. We meet with a lot of you out there that have, $300,000 saved for retirement. You might have $3 million saved for retirement. We see it all different ways. And you have, maybe Social Security, you have some rental income, or your house is paid for, whatever the instance is, and you're trying to look at all these different assets and wonder what is the best way to create a retirement plan that's going to fit our lifestyle, fit our risk comfortability, and fit our values of where we want to be, and making sure that, again, you have a team there to help guide you along to make sure that you're making those sound financial decisions throughout your retirement, right? So sizing up that situation, seeing where you're at, but also making sure you have the right team to help put together those pieces and then orchestrate that throughout the plan. So again, a lot of you guys out there maybe have an advisor, or maybe you don't have an advisor and you're getting closer to retirement, or maybe you just need a second opinion to see if you're on track. Definitely give us a call. We'd love to sit down with you. And like we always talk about, I don't pass you off on anybody else. You'll actually come into the office and meet with me, Logan Sadler, or we might even do it via Zoom, whatever's more convenient for you. We could touch base and really take a deep dive into your financial plan.
Well, if you want to have a conversation about all this with Logan Sadler, it's not going to cost you a penny, but that initial get-together, for sure, we call it a discovery meeting. 888-823-PLAN is your number to call, 888-823-PLAN. Call that number, leave your name and phone number. You'll get a call back, and you can set a time to have your conversation with Logan via Zoom or maybe in one of the offices. 2 convenient locations, Hemet, Redlands, wherever you live in Southern California. Take advantage of the opportunity. It's an offer that Logan Sadler makes to all the listeners of this show. And again, that number is 888-823-PLAN. Logan Sadler is on the radio. Go tell everybody you know, because he has some more important things coming up. I'm Ron Stutz along with Logan Sadler. We'll be right back.
Do you want to learn about retirement planning but don't have the time to listen to an hour radio show? The Financial Beat YouTube channel might be just what you're looking for. The channel has over 100 videos, all between 5 and 10 minutes, so that you can learn about retirement planning quickly and efficiently. They're all hosted by Logan Sadler, the Vice President and Chief Investment Officer at Regary Financial. Maybe you need some help understanding 401ks. Well, check out the video titled 5 Reasons 401ks Aren't for Everyone. You can watch that video and over 100 more on the Financial Beat YouTube channel. Just go to YouTube and search The Financial Beat.
It's getting to know you time.
You're listening to the Financial Beat with Logan Sadler, Regary Financial. Ron Stutz here. And Logan, I want to ask you a question that you might consider to be a ridiculous question. It's certainly a dark one. If you ever find yourself up for execution, and I don't think you ever will, but
I don't plan on it.
If you ever did find yourself up for execution, what would you request for your last meal?
You know, out of all the questions you've ever asked me on this Getting to Know You, this might actually be the easiest, just because I'm a foodie. I love food. So,
Yeah.
2 answers. One is it would be either I love pizza, so pizza would be up there. If it's and it depends on what kind. That's why I said I'd pick 2, but pizza would be number 1.
Uh-huh.
And if pizza wasn't available, the next would be a good tri-tip and potatoes. You know, you can't beat a good piece of meat and some potatoes.
That sounds good to me. Now, what about? Let me ask you another question, a follow-up question here about the pizza. Are you in favor of pineapple on pizzas?
No. I'm pretty strictly pepperoni only or cheese, but I'll throw in, every once in a while, like a barbecue chicken pizza or a margarita pizza, but no pineapple.
Yeah, I just wanted to ask that because that seems like a very popular question going around, Hawaiian pizza, pineapple and ham, whatever.
I don't know about it, man. It's just not for me, So on that day, if there was pineapple on the pizza, I'd go with the steak and potatoes.
That sounds good to me. Hey, listen, thanks a lot. Now you know Logan Sadler a little bit better, our Getting to Know You segment. You're listening to the Financial Beat right here on the radio. Thanks for being here.
Are you tired of feeling like taxes are out of your control? Take charge of your financial future with Logan Sadler's 2023 Guide to Tax Planning. This comprehensive resource is more than just a collection of tax tips. It can help you optimize your Social Security, retirement savings, and investments. And with the help of Regary Financial and Insurance, you can rest assured that you're making the right decisions. Download the guide today and start taking control of your financial future. Just text the word ADVICE to the number 21,000 and get the guide for free. Just text ADVICE to 21000.
Do you hear that? That's the sound of a plan that has some serious issues. Much better. That's the sound of a plan that was created by someone listening to the Financial Beat with Logan Sadler. So which sound is your financial plan making?
Welcome back to more of the Financial Beat with Logan Sadler of Regary Financial. He's the VP and Chief Investment Officer at Regary, and you can have a conversation with Logan for absolutely free. No obligation involved, no strings attached. Why not call 888-823-PLAN, 888-823-PLAN. Maybe you've been listening to this radio show for a long time. Maybe you've been checking out old shows and the podcast. Maybe you've been watching those YouTube videos that Logan has. Isn't it about time you go ahead and make that phone call and have a conversation with Logan? Again, it's cost-free, and there are no strings attached at all. The number to call, once again, is 888-823-PLAN. Logan works with 3 different generations of folks, and some of the clients have been with his firm for more than 25 years. And, of course, Logan has accumulated a lot of experience over the years and seen just about every kind of scenario there is. So your situation is different from anyone else's, and you can probably bet that Logan has seen someone else in a similar situation. And my goodness, can help you draw on that experience that he has to get you to and through retirement in the most efficient way possible. It's time to go to the mailbag. We have some great questions that came in this week, Logan. First one is from Aria in Nuevo. And Aria says, Logan, I'm supposed to retire next month, but I haven't done any planning at all yet. Wow. I just realized that I still need to figure out my Social Security options, pension options, Medicare options, as well as what I'm going to do with the rest of my life. Should I push my retirement date back until I figure all this stuff out?
Well, thanks for writing in, Aria. We appreciate the question here. And I love how you kind of phrased that, where you're like, I still got to figure the rest of my life out, right? So
Really?
obviously, I always tell clients the more time, the further ahead you could plan for retirement and go over this, the probably better you'll be prepared. However, I do, like Ron was saying there, I have a lot of experience with many different walks of life, and I've had this happen a couple times where last year there was a client where towards the end of the year, he was like, you know what? I'm going to retire and do all this myself. And then about a month before he was ready to retire, he said, yeah, I'm not doing this myself anymore. Reached out, and we were able to kind of go through the process and get things on track pretty quick. But I will say the further in advance, the better. Now, I'm not saying you have to delay retirement or any of that stuff yet, but I would definitely say give us a call as soon as you can and see what availability we have to get on the schedule there and go through this as soon as you can, or contact somebody to get on the schedule as soon as you can, because you want to go through really making sure you understand what you're retiring to, right? Because just because you're ready to retire doesn't necessarily mean your finances say you're ready to retire, right? So kind of going through, I think, all of those different options. And like you kind of said it there in your question, I mean, realizing your Social Security options. Is it better to take it now, or should we use some of your money to push Social Security out a couple years? Different Medicare options. You want to make sure you're meeting with a Medicare specialist, which again, we do work with a lot of different Medicare experts and specialists, and understanding how you're going to envision your retirement, what type of income you're going to need, what type of assets you have, where you're invested, right? There's a lot of work to do there, and going over through how you want your situation to look like. So I definitely say I wouldn't put this off any further, because you've definitely, I don't want to say waited till the last minute, but waited till one of your last minutes, right? So I want to make sure you know what you're retiring to before you do that. So definitely give us a call, and I appreciate the question, because there's a lot of stuff we could dive into to see if you might have to push that retirement date back, or to see if you're right on track. And we won't know that till we dive in.
Aria, please give Logan's office a call and have this conversation. You're not obligated to work with Logan at all, but you're going to get some answers to some questions. You're going to get some information that you certainly can benefit from. And it's a free conversation, no obligation, so why not? But important to do it right away. Don't retire without knowing the answers to some of these questions. 888-823-PLAN is your number to call if you want to have a conversation with Logan about your situation. Next question here is from Steve in Woodcrest. Steve says, I'm not retiring for another 5 years, so I don't feel the need to be ultra-conservative with my money, but my wife keeps insisting that she wants to be more secure. Just how secure do I need to be at this stage?
Yeah, that's a really great question there. I like the way you phrased that, Steve. So thanks for writing in there, and we appreciate the question. So I think you're right at that place where we call it the retirement red zone, right? You're in that spot where it's like, well, if I retire in 5 years, that is it doesn't sound like it, but that is a relatively short time frame where you're coming up on retirement. And again, that is a typical phase where some people start to make some adjustments and maybe get more conservative. Again, not necessarily ultra conservative, but they might start moving towards that direction with some of their money. And the reason why is what I would ask you, Steve, and what I would show you when you came in and we go through our process, I'd be able to kind of show you where if we stayed as is, right, maybe we're more moderate right now or whatever the case is, if we stayed as is, if we had a big market correction, because again, we never know, right? Like we talked about in the earlier segments, it could happen tomorrow, it could happen 5 years from now. But if the market did go down significantly and maybe stay down in bear market territory for maybe 2 years or 3 years, how would that affect your retirement date, right? Would it say, you know what, you now don't have enough assets, or your accounts are low enough where they won't create enough income for you to retire and live that lifestyle that you wanted? Or would it still be able to be done pretty successfully, right? So I think understanding that scenario first, and then also understanding that, what are our goals with this money? How much of it do we need immediately? How are we currently invested? And what is your view of ultra conservative, right? Or being more conservative? Is that using like annuities for income generation or bonds or CDs? What are you kind of visualizing as that? And making sure we're walking through, again, how that fits with your plan, because it's so important to understand how your situation is, not your neighbors or your friend or your brother-in-law, but your situation. If you and your wife were to experience a down market or maybe have to retire earlier or whatever the case is, how would that impact the plan and kind of walk through those scenarios. That's what I'd be asking myself. And if you came in, that's what I'd be asking you.
I just have one more thing I want to add to that. He was talking about how his wife keeps insisting that she wants to be more secure. Steve, happy wife, happy life.
Yeah, great point. And I always tell clients, like, sometimes the wife, if she wants to be more conservative with portions of the money, that's fine, right? That might work into the plan and might be able to be okay. But like I said, I think it's so important about having those conversations, and I think it's very important when I meet with clients. I love to meet with both spouses because it's important to kind of understand where we both lie and where both of our goals and values lie. I think it's important to understand that.
One more question today. It's from Beverly in Ukaipa. And Beverly says, I just got laid off last week, which was mostly unexpected. At 61, I'm not in a position to retire yet, but I'm also concerned about finding another job at the income level that I was at before. Will companies hire someone my age for six-figure positions? Oh, my goodness.
Ooh. Yeah, that's a tough one there.
Tough situation.
Yeah. Sorry, Beverly. That's a lot. Well, thanks for writing in, but yeah, it's a lot to go through at that stage, and it's a tough situation because yes, there's still a lot of companies out there that are hiring, and they might be looking for someone like in your position to come in and provide some value, and maybe even train some of the younger staff members at other positions. I'm not saying it's impossible, right? There's definitely still a lot of companies hiring, and depending on what type of industry you're in, which I don't think we got that here in the question, but depending on what type of industry you're in, there's a lot of companies that are still hiring, and a lot of them are just looking for still good employees that are going to show up. And like I was saying, if you have some value to pass on to some of those younger generations. One of the things I would say is you definitely want to, if you're not retiring till later on, I would kind of want to see where you're at, where your financial situation's at, and if you took significantly less money by going back to work, how worth it would it be, right? Rather than just retiring and kind of going through a lot of those scenarios, because that's a tough one. Unfortunately, I've had some clients go through this, and you want to navigate it with careful feet, I call it, and make sure you're kind of exploring all your options and not waiting too long to get back out in the job market, but also assess where you're at right now with your current portfolios and your plan, and seeing how much more we got to earn or how much more money we need to put away to get where we were trying to go to a successful retirement, and making sure you're on track. But yeah, I definitely think it's possible, but I would definitely come in, let's go over some things and make sure you're on track, and then we could definitely take a look at, okay, what type of positions are hiring and how that would look.
I'm going to see the glass half full for a moment here, and this is based on the fact that this has happened with some folks. Beverly, you might be in better shape than you think. You might come in and have a conversation with Logan Sadler, and he could pat you on the back and say, hey, you can retire now. You don't have to worry about going back to work. So, I'm not saying that's going to happen because we don't know anything about you, but it's possible. So why not check it out? Logan, I know a lot of people out there are in that particular situation, or maybe they're in this situation like Steve was in, or Aria. A lot of people have questions. First of all, if some of our listeners want to get questions to you and perhaps hear them answered here on the radio, or if they want to arrange a time to come in and have a conversation with you, how's that going to work?
Yeah, the best part about it is if you have any questions, you could always comment on some of the YouTube videos with a question, or email in, or go to the website, thefinancialbeat.com. You can go there and also leave some questions. So there's always some availability to get your questions out there, because that's what we love to do, is make sure we're providing you guys with content for things that you guys might want to hear some, things further explained, or some deeper dives into those topics. And for those of you out there that are wondering, why do I need this discovery meeting, or what would be the benefit of it? And really, it's just like it sounds. A lot of you out there, I know, are approaching retirement or getting closer to retirement, and you might have an advisor you've worked with for a few years, or you might have never met with an advisor, and you're just kind of wondering, well, am I going to do this myself? Am I going to hire somebody? How is that going to work? And am I even on track for the retirement we wanted? Or you might not even know what type of retirement you want. And that's really where the discovery meeting is, where we actually sit down and kind of go through, again, what our firm does, what the value we could bring to the table, and tell you a little bit about our history of being around a long time, and making sure, again, providing sound financial advice for a lot of you out there, and then diving into really what is it in the bottom line that we're trying to solve for? What are your concerns? What are your goals? And what type of situation are we currently in? Maybe are you well on track for where you're trying to be, or is there areas we need to kick it up and get on track a little bit quicker? And so that's definitely what the discovery meeting's all for. We sit down and really go over your situation and, again, tell you a little bit more about our firm and making sure we're a good fit. We always talk about how important making sure we're a good fit for you and you're a good fit for us. It's so, so important, and we always appreciate each and every one of you out there listening to the show, and hopefully you guys got some value from it. And if you are getting close to retirement or just getting ready to start and thinking it's a good time to make that phone call, would love to sit down and talk with you. And for those of you that are still sticking around for the show, we're going to catch you again here next week.
888-823-PLAN, 888-823-7526. But as we've said so many times, it's easier to remember it when you use the word plan. Find that on your phone, 888-823-PLAN. That number will get you a conversation with Logan Sadler that's free. It carries with it no obligation at all. All you have to do today is call the office, leave a message with your name and phone number. You'll get a call back, and then you can set a time that's convenient for you to have your conversation with Logan, either via Zoom or maybe in the office. Hemet or Redlands, your choice. 888-823-PLAN. That's your number to call to make it happen. Logan Sadler will be glad to sit down and talk with you for a few minutes. There's no one-size-fits-all when it comes to retirement. Everybody's situation is different. Why not call this number and make it happen? Maybe you've been listening to the show for quite some time and just haven't gotten around to it. Make today the day. 888-823-PLAN. I'm Ron Stutz along with Logan Sadler. And Logan, I've enjoyed it, and we'll talk to you again next time.
Yeah, thanks, Ron. I've enjoyed it as well, and I appreciate all the listeners out there, and I'll see you again next week.
Regary Financial and Insurance Services, Inc. and BD Financial Group, Inc. are separate and independent entities. The information provided in this presentation is presented for educational and informational purposes only and does not constitute financial, investment, tax, or legal advice, nor does it constitute an offer or solicitation to buy or sell any securities.